Okay, hi guys. Okay, so I'm trying to third attempt today. I did 2 attempts yesterday and failed. So this is probably going to be my last attempt for now. If this doesn't work, I will have to come back later. I may still upload whatever comes out of this at this particular point because, I want you guys to see me and to know what's going on a bit. I've been going into the assemblage point. So I will title my video that also because it's my experiences with that that I'm going to try and convey to you guys. I know also that there are moments where I just have to basically organize my brain for a while, and talking about things actually helps me to do that. So, just keep it just keep at it. Just let's just not be desperate here, okay? And just try to do a bit of the thing because I want to do a bit. It's not going to cover the entire subject. This is not going to be like an expose or anything like that. It's also rather a confusing subject as it is, I think, because basically I got to the theme of the assemblage point through this guy, Castaneda, yes. And this is one of his later volumes called The Power of Silence that I bought secondhand somewhere. I'm halfway in. And it's interesting. I kind of think that's always cool to read a bit of Castaneda. I tend to go and do that in October, November. It's like a seasonal activity for me. I enjoy the some of the trippy experiences. Are you surprised? Maybe not. I would never go to the lengths that he goes to, especially in the earlier books with, the peyote and all that. I'd be interested to have me a bottle, with some peyote cactus thingamajig inside to just sit and hold and contemplate, and see what that does to my vibration. Just like I have, hang on a second, my great big friendly bottle that contains the mushrooms. So I'll sit here and hold this for a bit, see what that does, because he's the one, Castaneda is the one, as far as I've been able to gather, who comes out first with this term of the assemblage point. And the way he looks at it and the way he talks about it and the way he uses it, or the way Don Juan uses it, that he gets, he interacts with the whole time, is one way. And if you Google it or look it up on YouTube, there's even several channels that talk about people talk about the assemblage point, is a completely different way, as far as I can tell. So confusing. A lot of that is quite confusing to me. I can kind of see where they intersect, but I'm not sure. And a lot of the Castaneda, how should I put that? The narratology, the way of the things they're interested in, the way they're going about things, the intentions of the people in the books, assuming all that is sort of real or inspired by reality, which nobody seems to really be sure about, It's kind of very much the 60s, 70s atmosphere where everything was a challenge. I'm putting it in the way that I feel like, this is one way of looking at things. I'm just doing my thing here. I'm not making any pronouncements that this would be actually the way it was. I don't know. I feel that way. When I read Castaneda, it reads to me like everything is a challenge to be conquered. You're supposed to become a sorcerer. You're supposed to strive for impeccability and ruthlessness and all those characteristics. You know, you have to learn a certain level of discipline. All that's actually rather cool, I think, and can be inspiring, certainly. But there's no real personal vulnerability in there. There's no psychoanalysis. There's hardly any real emotion. None of that. Whereas what I've been involved with in the past, 4 or 5 days or so, has had to do with a completely different approach, basically. So the approach, and I was interested in the whole shamanic approach in a way, certainly, but it's become like 100 times more interesting because of the new approaches that are out there. It turns out that, coming back to this assemblage point, okay, I'm just trying to make this up as I go along, on the basis of what I've gathered so far. The way Castaneda and his people, the people he talks about, use the assemblage point, assuming it's the same thing, I'm not even sure about that, is to change a person's awareness. Awareness being the perception of his surroundings, okay? So shifting a person's assemblage point in whichever way does have there are situations where that actually saves somebody's life, for example. But most times what I read in the books, what happens is the person starts to see like auras or spirits or both, you know. Most of the time he enters a different perception. His perception changes because the assemblage point shifts, because somebody does something to it. So it's almost mechanical. It's almost like you give a shove to this person's assemblage point in one way or another, and boom, they start seeing auras and they start seeing plant spirits or what have you, you know? And none of that is ever really therapeutic or personal. It has to do with the sorcerer's path eventually at some point, and it's completely different from what we're working with nowadays, or at least with those people that I found online. I stick links in the description, of course, now that I'm, actually got this going, where you can find the intel that I've been using, and I've been applying this kind of information, and it becomes intensely personal, and it's like this huge transformation in my life again. So again, after the Tektite and talking to my dad and all the rest of it, here I am again, like being the hanged woman. I'm upside down again because, ugh. So, in a nutshell, what I found is this chart where you look at a person's thorax, like this part of you, and what they're saying is the assemblage point should be right here in the middle, a bit higher up for women and a bit lower down, maybe an inch or so, less than an inch, I think, for men in general. And in traumatized people, it isn't in the middle. That's it. And then you get like this chart with kind of pathological situations, psychological, case types, like depression and anxiety and dementia even is mentioned. And what were the other ones? Hallucination. A number of them, like 10 or so, different types of traumatized behavior, where each type has a location in the chest, like so. So your boobs are in the way if you're a female, but it doesn't really have to do with the physical, with the organs, or even with the lungs or any of it necessarily. There is like this, the assemblage point is also described again as what you would tend to see if you look at a magnetic field. So think of the iron filings around a magnet going like this, like a pumpkin shape, something like that. You have to remember the pumpkin shape, and the heart of the pumpkin is your heart. Ideally, only if we are traumatized, like I found myself to be. And you can diagnose this by yourself, going like this more or less rather easily, because there's a sore spot, which is kind of cool. So I located my own sore spot over here, where over here you would have a panic area, and this is an anxiety area. And lower down you get to, I think, anger, and then depression, something like that, more or less. And I will stick the link to that first of all in the description. I can still feel it if I push down on it a bit, or, because it isn't completely reset yet. The second, consequence of this, the coming from this, of course, is you want to try to realign the assemblage problem back to the middle. And all that, you have to, I was going on about this pumpkin shape. So this pumpkin shape is then, instead of being in the middle and where you would look at yourself to the side, you have these big, like globes of waves of, it's like a magnetic field, basically. Layers around each other, okay? So it's like a focal point of some type of a magnetic nature, something like that. And there's a huge difference in how it feels from, and that's what I haven't heard people talk about yet, so that's why I'm wanting to make this video now, here, okay? From the way it feels, it's like I suppose I parked a part of my identity away from my heart because of the things that happened to me when I was a small kid. And I also may have very well copied some of this pattern from my mum, who had, I believe, the same type of lack of integration going on. So you will inherit these types of patterns from other people, and they will have inherited from others again. So a lot of this. And then afterwards, it prevents your functioning as a wholehearted human being. And that's where it gets really interesting to me, of course, because now, what with having sort of managed to establish a good contact anyway between this area, which is alive by itself, and the assemblage point area, I'm, starting to feel things differently, and it's really interesting. And it's really, I'm very tired. I am very confused in a lot of ways. I also feel loads better. I can tell that it feels a lot more hopeful, and I've got like a bit of a devil may care almost kind of an attitude, which is weird considering that I'm also rather tired. So I feel like, go ahead, bring it on, kind of but there's still, so the trick to establishing this contact between those two areas, really, that I also figured out from this guy's website, is that you shouldn't, what I tried at first is to make a direct line between, so like an energy connection in a way between those two areas, and that didn't really work all that well, although I was also out of the house at the time and I wasn't really able to focus completely. I could feel, it was like a kind of getting to know the difference in vibes and the way it felt and all that, but it wouldn't really connect completely. And what it says on this guy's website is that you have to like go to like a straight line a straight horizontal line to the middle from your position that you are at, that you felt that your location is at, and from there on down to the position where you're supposed to be going, where you want it to be, or where you feel, where it feels like it is supposed to be living. Okay, so rather than go in a straight hypotenusa, whichever that's called in English, in a straight line like that, I was having to go in this particular case maybe down a bit, like a tiny bit, and then in a straight line to the middle, and from that to this bit right here, where you would have your favorite gemstone if you were wearing any. Of course, I'm not wearing any crystals at the moment because I don't want to mess this up. I want this to do its thing in the natural way, and just let it happen. All I'm using is my Amanita thing, a tiny bit, and I'm using a lavender oil. Basically, that's the aromatherapy for the day, and a bit of cinnamon incense and that kind of, fairly mild, relaxant. I did have coffee, and like I said, I don't know if I remember saying it in this video or it was one of the other attempts. It's confusing. It feels really good. When I started this process off, it was this morning, really fairly early. The first moment I did that, and I got to have my pumpkin heart in the middle properly, in its proper position for the first time. And then I sort of got up out of bed and I walked around a bit. It was like I could actually feel like this soft, big bubble coming out of me in several layers. It was like it was walking around with me. It felt, I could actually feel or see my energy layers going like that. So that's gone. That's kind of, I suppose most of it is starting to integrate and become more normal. It also hurts quite a bit. It doesn't hurt that much anymore at the moment, but I started working on this on Saturday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's only been 3 days really, that I could actually feel that it was kind of stinging in here in different locations. And it was a bit, I could feel that some work absolutely needed to be done. I needed to get this done. So far, I think it's working really well. I can feel there's more energy here. It's like the energy was always, I'm always going on about, why is there so much darkness on my face? And now there isn't. So I have to come a bit closer because of the, the sun. If I'm in the shade of the tree leaves over there, I just go black and white all of a sudden. So yeah, the last bit really I think that I want to share with you at this point is that I'm always going on about the Shakti energy. So there was a lot of Shakti energy in my body basically, but just as it was with the, soul structure kind of an episode that I did a while ago, there is, the Shakti doesn't really provide all that much structure, basically, it looks like. The Shakti or Kundalini energy basically fuels everything. And so it doesn't really provide any, it doesn't line itself up all that well. And there's other sources for the actual lining up of the energy and for us to actually be able to express ourselves in the way we want to. So I think I'm going to leave it at this because this actually looks like it has worked so far. I'm really happy with my lavender absolute here because it's just amazing. I can feel that the essential oils are coming home much more. I've always been a huge fan of all sorts of essential oils, and it's like my perception of that is gone a level deeper. So I love it. It's great. All this very positive, a bit scary, less painful now that it's actually progressing and happening. Apparently, it's possible for this assemblage point to shift around in your chest quite a bit more than you would expect. So, on that note, 20 minutes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me ramble about this. I will upload this right away, and I will see you again soon. Okay? Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.